Okay, good morning. For those of you who didn't really know what asset-heavy industry really meant, what you saw on the screen was, in fact, asset-heavy industries. So I am Karl Hersvik. I run Aker BP. I am leading a Norwegian pure-play exploration and production company in the middle of a revolution with digitalization, innovative work methods, groundbreaking new technologies that you just saw here today are making inroads into the oil and gas industry. A revolution we in Aker BP do not intend to stand idly by and watch, but we intend to lead the charge. A few years ago, we made a bold commitment. We made a bet on future oil and gas projects. In one board meeting, we invested $19.5 billion, or equivalent to the market cap of the company at that point in time, in future oil and gas projects. A bet on our capability of developing assets. A bet that would not only depend on excellence in engineering, execution, and operation, but also fundamentally dependent on our success in digitalization. So for me, failing with digitalization, failing with AI, and failing with good data is not an option. And these projects, they will be developed. We are in the middle of it right now. We are fighting these battles every single day. And 6 years ago, Forbes magazine ran this title, you have a tendency talking to journalists. We shouldn't do that. I can advise that because you don't know what headline you'll end up with. This one was actually pretty good. It says, Aker BP's mathematician CEO believes that his tech company just happens to produce oil. That was actually my quote. I was actually quite happy. I thought that was a pretty cool quote. And then lots of criticism of saying, well, oil and gas companies, not really tech. It's really a flirt with the tech companies. It's basically driven by that the guy doesn't really know how to wear a suit, which is obviously correct. And that I'm more fond of the tech founders in Silicon Valley than my peers in the oil and gas business. Well, obviously, they were right about my preference of not wearing a suit. But the real reason was that I had a genuine belief that the oil and gas business is and was on the brink of a monumental transformation. Where the old model, and I'll talk about that in a minute, was on a brink of extinction. And a new model we had yet to develop would replace it. It was a battle cry to lead the charge. Because the oil and gas business, certainly the offshore part of it, the onshore and lower 48 is a bit different business, has been a risk management business almost since Sir Francis Drake discovered oil and gas. It's essentially about managing the risk above and beyond and below the ground. And while risk will continue to be all around us in the oil and gas business, and make no mistake, that will continue to be the case as long as we keep producing oil and gas, there is one word I really want you to remember from this presentation, and that's productivity. It's the amount of outcome we can generate from a certain set of input factors, whether that is time, money, humans, data, whatever. So productivity, to me, is the amount of outcomes that you're able to generate inside your organization. And you were talking about the Olympics. Productivity will be the Olympics for oil and gas. And that's becoming evident right now in my backyard. I'm operating on a Norwegian continental shelf. It's starting to become mature. Discoveries are getting smaller, reservoirs are more complex, and the competition, well, the competition is tough and increasing. That makes it increasingly difficult to make the same amount of money that I did in the past, which of course, my shareholder is expecting that I do, and hopefully increase. So the challenge just got tougher. And I'm telling my 3,000 employees that we must succeed with three things simultaneously in order to prevail in the future. First, and probably most importantly, we must operate our existing assets with industry-leading efficiency. And this, we've actually made pretty good inroads, and I'll show you some of the reasons later on. But the stats are that we're running production efficiency company-wide 95 to 97%. We have, which is basically industry-leading, we have an all-in lifting cost around $7 a barrel, and we have, call it the CO2 efficiency of 2.4, 2.5 kilograms per BOE. All industry-leading matrices, right? So our starting point is pretty good. And subsequently, the ongoing project that you saw on screen, they must be delivered on time, on budget, and with the right quality. And finally, we need to discover more, and we need to develop it significantly faster than in the past, while Mother Earth is growing the challenge we are facing. Three simple tasks, you say? Same as before, heard it before? Or three incredibly difficult tasks? Well, the fact of the matter is that if you project into 2035, and we didn't compare notes, Girish, but I'm going to build on you, 10 years into the future, and you ask yourself, what do you need to do in order to be industry leading? The reality is we're not going to make do with a few percent of incremental improvement. You're actually going to have to talk about orders of magnitude in productivity improvement over the next 10 years. And in Aker BP, we are talking about 3x. So our total amount of outcomes based on the total amount of input needs to improve 3x over the next 10 years. I love your moonshot. I buy into your make no little plans, Girish. So this will be a battle, but it'll be a battle we cannot win alone. It is a battle we will continue to fight with partners in a relationship that's deep and strong and committing over a long period of time. And now I didn't really coordinate this with Mike, but now I'm trying to do two things at the same point in time to get these three faces of the audience to all have something to adhere to. So those of you who are learning, that can listen to me. Those of you who are on vacation can look at the screen. That's much simpler. Doesn't really need that much cognitive. And those who are in the back, well, you can do whatever you like. Because it is this long relationship with partners like Cognite that has brought us to this starting point where we are today. So Cognite and the Cognite data platform is existential for our capabilities of deploying the technologies that will lead into this productivity revolution. But there is a silver lining. Right now, we are standing on the brink on something that we've never seen before. The capability development of artificial intelligence, a technology that will fundamentally change business models, that will raise work process to the ground, that will demolish application ecosystems, and will fundamentally change the way we think about organizations. It will create winners and losers in a pace we've never seen before in the asset-heavy industries. So while the battle cry is not only to increase productivity, it's also to increase competitiveness. I'll do the rest of my speech around two main topics. So first, I'll talk about data. It's been covered a bit here today, but I'll talk about it nevertheless. Then I'll talk about AI. Why? Because those two topics are really the same coin. It's just different sides. You can't really talk about AI without talking about data, and you can't really talk about data these days without talking about AI. Personally, I have been obsessed with data for years. And I think that our ability to prevail lay not in the availability of data, but the availability of good and trusted data. And Cognite back in 2016, and Jon Markus was there, we shared a view. It was all about liberating data from its silos. And I went around telling people that data become increasingly valuable the more it was shared, that there was no value left if you were basically stocking up on your data. So we went out, or let's say in, to liberate our data. Good data was in fact quite quickly becoming the foundation for basically everything we did. But second, once we had the good data, we needed to make it accessible, not just to human consumers, but to software and machine-to-machine communication on a consistent platform. Critical operations like the ones we are running, they demand timely insights. You cannot wait for days for data analysis if your decision horizon is hours. So you will make decisions without support of data if your data analysis are not keeping up with time. But accessible data, they can power insights, systems, application, workflows, and now AI. So that is a fundamental requirement. And thirdly, we understood that consistent data platforms, they were actually essential. They were like the ground floor of your house, the foundation of your garage. You couldn't really build something without a consistent data platform. But the industrial tech stack is extremely complicated. Vendors are competing for control, and therefore they are competing for the ownership of their data. And that resulted in inaccessible, incoherent data on different standards, different platforms, which were basically impossible to correlate. This could simply not continue. We had no way forward if that was the industrial architecture. On the contrary, a consistent data platform connecting or erasing these silos was a fundamental requirement. And even more critical, it could expand as the demand grew, scale across assets, sites, and functions. And thought, while you don't like the word ecosystem, I've been using it for years, we actually tried to develop a unified ecosystem for seamless data flow, enabling trusted access, utilization from any platform and any user, and resulted, in fact, in where we are today with a trusted, truly AI-ready data foundation, a source of truth supporting us in our decision-making. This approach, this four-step approach, made us realize that platform openness and interoperability were the crucial elements for digitalization. These use cases or experiments that were essentially verticals, they did not scale. And I can tell you that with a lot of subjectivity because I've done a lot of it. We saw that early on, luckily, and I think that's the reason that we are where we are today. I know it's the reason I'm on this stage today. And that means that a new world of opportunities opened when we managed to connect the different data points, to understand the complexity and context of an asset or work process. This is actually the foundation that we are now ready to move on to unmanned remote operations, which I'll talk about in a while. And then value. I've long since been confident in the importance of data, essentially over the last decade, but I've been less sure about how to extract value. Previously, we've tried lots of approaches. We probably ended up in the application space, where in some way, shape, or form, we have helped organizations and companies develop products that they could push into the market and be consistent in demanding that we will not participate in developing products or applications or systems that are not a part of a productable environment. We did not want something that just worked for Aker BP. And looking back, yes, many happy users, really, really good operational results. We're basically leading the charge in the oil and gas business on many different horizons. But it felt more like incremental change than fundamental change. And we've done lots of mistakes. Or, as my IR team wants me to talk about it, lessons learned. The truth is that we, along these 10 years of digitalization, probably been into every pothole that was on that road, and probably also invented some that nobody knew about with our partners. It's not been pleasant all the time. But the good news is staying there at it, going at it, made us really, really good climbing out of these potholes, and ultimately they actually turned into lessons learned. Expensive lessons all the same, but still. And right now, we are at a point in time where we are building a uniform digital ecosystem, where machine-readable, trusted, and accessible data is available across every asset and every operation. And this actually leads me neatly over to my second topic. Now, my second topic feels distinctly like transformational. It feels much more like 3X. And of course, now I'm talking about the application of artificial intelligence on top of this data platform. And the way we think about this, the mental model is actually really simple. We are creating reusable data products that will fuel every AI model that we deploy. In fact, we are treating AI models almost the same way that we're treating data products. Today, many operators, and Aker BP also, are struggling to make the data truly AI-ready across the entire corporation. So that the front line, whether that's a worker or a geophysicist, they can actually trust the outcomes from the artificial intelligence applications or adaptability. But if you arm AI with trusted, contextualized data, you can actually make the data truly AI-ready and avoid poor AI-driven outcomes. That road is quite quickly clearing up. And this is simply why a modern AI data platform is capable and must be capable of structuring multiple sets of data types for various kinds of AI applications and use cases. It will not work to have many different data platforms layered together because you lose the contextualization. And we are actively developing AI systems that don't just automate tasks. They will simulate thousands of outcomes, possible scenarios, predict failures before they actually happen, and they will guide decisions with precision. A few concrete examples. We feed our GenAI-powered exploration robot with terabytes of data. Essentially, everything that's ever been published about the geology on the Norwegian continental shelf is accessible. Every data we had in Aker BP, everything we could source from wherever in the market on structured data is fed into this system. Terabytes and terabytes of data, good data. Spend enormous amount of resources making sure it was good data, and that allows us to make decisions to drill where it matters the most. And even more importantly, it takes the bias, the human bias, out of exploration drilling. Good data, the same data platform, allows us to run thousands of scenarios to extract the most efficient field development. So we don't have to wait for long engineering processes to decide on what we are going to build. We spend the engineering resources building what we have decided to build in the first place. And we are, as was talked about earlier today, using AI models to parse good data from sources into data models, both saving a significant amount of time and money, avoiding the human use, but also making sure that these data models are even more prolific and even more capable of deploying AI on top of them. And as Girish has just demonstrated, waiting for weeks to do sophisticated root cause analysis to figure out the underlying causes of a problem is now a thing of the past. Because good data and Cognite's Atlas AI in root cause analysis, and I think it's actually 3 agents now and not just one, that reduced this from weeks to months. And you're absolutely right, Girish. Across the tests we've run, the improvement in time is roughly 97%. Now you're starting to get a feeling for the 3x. So data is what allows AI systems to learn, to recognize patterns, to make accurate predictions and decisions. But in an industrial ecosystem, LLMs alone is not enough. So I'm super happy to hear that we finally put some focus on the other parts of the data, the structured data, particularly the time series. And I know you've been hard at work on that for a long time. But frankly, we need to solve both the structured problem and the unstructured problem for us to reach that ambition of 3x. And many have said, well, you were really smart back in 2016, leading us to where you are now, ideally jump-off point, right? Maybe. I actually think we were pretty lucky. But being in this position allows us to empower and put AI into the core of every single challenge we want to solve. Integrated, native, and embedded. Because in Aker BP, AI is not a side project. It's not something done on the side by somebody, some techies sitting in hoodies in an office in the back of the operation. It's actually going on at the front office. It is how we are involving our operations. And it's embedded company-wide in every office, in every site, and in every function. It's a fundamental change to how this company is going to innovate and create and grow in the future. And we are on the way. Somebody told me that we have a bigger Copilot adoption than Microsoft. Is there any Microsoft people in the room? I actually like that a lot. So that means that we do it, we test it, and we're not afraid to allocate resources against it, and we're not afraid to fail. Because in a margin-driven industry, good and smart AI isn't just helpful, it is what makes the difference between winning and losing, between incremental improvement and transformational change. I stated that I had no alternative in the beginning of this talk with succeeding with digitalization. That's easy to say, isn't it? So let me give you a proof point. The case in point is Yggdrasil, one of the biggest installations and the biggest ongoing project on the Norwegian continental shelf. Standalone field development, thousands of tons of topside, large subsea developments, 3 standalone platforms, a massive bet on oil and gas. But equally, a bet on the success of our digitalization efforts. Because when Yggdrasil comes on stream in 2027, Aker BP will set new standards for offshore oil and gas operations. Digital twin technology, remote control of offshore activities from shore, unmanned installations, walk-to-work vessels, and teams of people, agents, and robots will work coherently together to operate that asset. We actually have the first lost time accident involving a robot. That was a first. It demanded a new paragraph in our HSE reporting system. Because Yggdrasil is truly an AI-ready field, where AI can now and will in the future play an increasingly important role as it goes into production. The fact of the matter is that the whole field can actually be run by two human beings. So you heard me talk about data, you heard me talk about AI, and I'm guessing that you're getting ready for your Expro break. But there is actually one more thing. The organizations that we belong to, they are valuable, they're consistent, they have cultures that are proud of what we have achieved, They have consistent work process that developed over a long period of time. That is likely our biggest challenge. And I don't have the answer to how an AI-ready organization would look like, but I'd like to share with you a few lessons learned from my 10 years of trying and failing with digitalization. So first, leadership matters. A wise man once told me in my first leadership job that all the bottlenecks is in the top of the bottle. I think that is something that is stuck in my mind. I'm not going to describe to you how he explained how you should get the cork out of a bottle. That involved a huge amount of force and yeah. But it's true. Transformational change can't be done without leadership and commitment from the top. But it's not enough to lead from the top. The whole organization needs to be on board. So I expect my asset manager not only to know the physical assets, the physical layout of the assets, but also the data layout which fuels their assets and their operations. And not only that, I expect them to understand where the shortcomings are and have plans for what to do with it. Because in the digital world, understanding the physical reality is important, but understanding the digital reality is just as important. And we are likely the last generation of leaders who have only human employees. Have you thought about that? What happens to your organization and teams when they are consisting of humans, agents, and robots working together in seamless work processes that are not necessarily defined by static documents? What happens to the functions that we are so proud of when Girish can run a root cause analysis and you don't have to have a PhD in maintenance to do it? I don't know, but I know this. It will not be the organization that we are a part of today. And then remember that this work process that we are so proud of, that are a consistent part of an industrial operation and a necessary part of this industrial operation, because without them, you will have huge quality and HSE incidents. They also need to be changed. Fundamentally, radically. I don't know how to do that either, but I give you one example. In Aker BP, while we are executing the biggest project portfolio in the duration of the Aker BP as a company, we have split out the group. And we said to this group, growth project, forget everything you have learned, forget everything about the textbook on project and project execution. Start with something that is digitally native. Start with the assumption of doing this 3 times as fast as you've done in the past and work backwards. Don't amend the existing work processes. And guys, please do forget the hub and spoke model. This idea that there is some brilliant customer sitting in the middle of that wheel, contracting parts into an ecosystem and then building a wheel that's specific for us in the hub. Well, it may have worked in the past, but it doesn't in the future. You can and you have to build alliances and strong relationships over time. The movie you just saw is evidence that we as a small organization can actually run projects that are much larger than the size of our operations because they are run by alliances, not hub and spoke models. So please forget the notion, both digitally and physically. And then give people room to experiment. This summer, we drilled a breakthrough well on the Norwegian continental shelf. Omega Alpha, 45,000 meters of well drilled, 45,000 meters, yes, 45 kilometers, 40 kilometers of reservoir, drilled in 3 months where we basically challenged every book that's ever been written on reservoir drilling. My favorite moment is this summer was going into the morning meeting, sitting in the dark back end of the operation room and watching these young individuals, wishing I was 15 years younger and could participate. Allowing them to fail, allowing them to execute, has fundamentally changed the way we think about drilling operations. And finally, please do manage your controls. Second barrier, internal audit, all these functions, they are fantastic keeping your basic operations under control, but if you deploy them on your technology development and your transformational scope, they will kill it because it doesn't adhere to that control. And I buy into you as an end comment. I really buy in to your make no little plans. In Aker BP, this is really simple. We want to become the best E&P company there is. And the reason is simple. The dinosaur behind me here is sitting in our headquarters in Fornebu, reminding us every day that if we don't fundamentally change and adapt, we will be just as extinct. Maybe not in 1,000,000 years, but maybe in a few tens of years. And then I don't want 100% or 200% improvement. I want 3x. So I'll take $100 billion of that improvement, Girish. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all of that wisdom. Very interesting. Our time is completely out, but I do have 2 follow-on questions for you very quickly. One, everybody wants to know this. Do you ever take the robot dog home to the family?
No.
You don't? Oh, a missed opportunity. 2.
For the family or the dog?
Well, a bit of both. Some people are still skeptical of the power of AI. Some are very, very early on the journey. What is your parting bit of wisdom for those who are just about to begin? What should they aim for first to get those little wins that lead to those big plans?
Find a good partner, dive into it fearlessly, experiment early, and make sure that you fail fast so you can actually redeploy resources and try it again. It is a continuous improvement process.
It has been an education. Karl, thank you very much. Thank you.